And out of this huge and vast subject, what I chose to present here is those changes that has been made from 1993 to 2016 in 13920 code and how it affects the structural engineers when they are designing. This is one aspect that we would like to describe. The second aspect which I would like to present to you is the code includes provisions for frames, provisions for shear walls, but it does not include certain types of structures like flat slabs, etc. So, what are the things that are included and how we have to deal with those things which are not included? What does the code say about it? Is a few things which I have tried to put forward, and also I have given emphasis on those items which have been specifically revised, and in the field not many address these issues which are given in the code. Next slide. IS 13920 is not a standalone code. It actually supports IS 1893. And IS 1893 also was recently revised. And therefore, when we go into IS 13920, it is worthwhile to see the changes that has been made recently in IS 1893. These changes I have tried to put forward here. Planning building configuration as per definition of regular geometry has been revised. Load combinations have been revised. Now, in the new code, vertical earthquake force with SA by G 2.5 is now mandatory for zones 4 in all zones, zone 4 and 5. Can you blow it up? இது இந்த மோடுக்கு எடுத்துட்டு போயிடுறீங்களா பிரசன்டேஷன் மோடுக்கு? Sabari. Okay, let us proceed. Stiffness modifiers have been suggested, and this is very important. Also, people who are using software should realize that these stiffness modifiers have not yet been fully incorporated in the software, and therefore we might have to run the program number of times with the stiffness modifiers to get what we want from the software. Flat slabs, precast PT systems to be used only after performing nonlinear analysis and adequate experimentation. Now, floating and stub columns have been completely prohibited. Open stories need to incorporate bracings or RC shear walls. Design eccentricity at each floor level has been revised and must be checked accordingly. And this again has a thing with software. Importance factor has been revised. Now our importance factor is 1.2 for occupancy greater than 200. Most of our flats will have an occupancy of this order, and therefore our importance factor now becomes 1.2. Occupancy buildings and minimum earthquake shear specified for all zones. Minimum earthquake shear has been specified in IS 1893. I am not going into the details that are specified in IS 1893. I am giving you this as a prelude to our journey into IS 13920. Next slide. Regarding foundations, no isolated footing to be provided if the SPT value is less than 10. Columns minimum size now is governed by either 300 mm or 20 times diameter of the main bar. This is a very important change that has been made, because you need this 20 times diameter of the beam reinforcement to get into the column if development length for the beam rod is to be adequate. And therefore, the minimum dimension of the column now depends on two factors. One, minimum 300, and another, what diameter of the main bar you are using in the beam. Suppose you are using a diameter of 20 mm, and 20 times 20 becomes 400, and 400 mm will be the minimum dimension of the column on one side. Strong column only allowed to participate in resisting lateral load, and the strong column is now to be checked to be 1.4 times the beam strength at every joint. This we will see in a little more detail later on, but this is a new class which ensures that you have only a strong column, weak beam system. All columns to be designed, all other columns to be designed as gravity columns and checked for bending shear induced by R times the displacement. Now, gravity columns need not be checked for earthquake force, but it has to be ductile enough to permit R times deformation, and therefore ductility provisions are stringent on the gravity column, even though force requirement on the gravity column may not be high. Beams, ductility provisions to be similar to that of columns, and spacing governed by the same formula. Maximum ductile spacing is now 100 mm and not 150 mm as per the old code. Next slide. Yeah. I have given two columns, one column old code, the other column new code. In the new code, we will concentrate on what is in the new code, and sometimes we may refer to the provisions that are there in the old code to compare how we have improved. The provisions of RC construction given herein apply specifically to monolithic reinforced concrete construction. It is monolithic reinforced concrete construction, and therefore you cannot apply this to precast or pre-stressed concrete members. And if precast or pre-stressed concrete members are used, you should definitely look for recent literature. Recent literature shows that precast and pre-stressed concrete structures can also be made ductile by proper design and execution. Likewise, flat slab structures must have lateral load resisting system capable of providing similar level of performance as envisioned in the standard, and must be designed for drift compatibility as per 11. That is, if you are not designing the columns for lateral load, the lateral load may be apportioned to the shear walls. The columns may be gravity columns, but the gravity columns will have to deflect and permit ductility R times the value, so that the columns of the flat slab doesn't fracture. Next slide. Now, specifically, if you look at 13920, there are recommendations given both for frames as well as shear walls. In this lecture, I am going to concentrate on frames, and probably in another lecture, we may look at the provisions that are given for shear walls. If you take the frames, the major provisions are made with respect to the members, with respect to the joints. Also, the type of member is also an important issue. All frames and RC walls in a structure need not be designed for lateral load. you can designate those columns and shear walls as seismic resistant, and only those will have to be designed for seismic force, lateral seismic force. But when there is lateral seismic force on these columns and frames, those columns which you have designated as gravity column, which takes only gravity load, should be ductile. So ductility provisions do apply to the gravity columns, but force provision will not apply with respect to lateral load. It will apply only with respect to gravity load. RC monolithic members are assumed not to participate in the lateral load resisting system. Their effect on the seismic response of the system is accounted for. Consequence of failure of such gravity columns will have to be considered when you are doing separating as lateral load resisting column and gravity column. This is given in section class 1.1.3 of 13920/2016. Next slide, please. The next question that is asked is, what is the strength of concrete to be used for seismic resistance? As per the old code 1993, M20 was permitted. But if you look at the new code, minimum grade of structural concrete shall be M20, but M25 for buildings more than 15 meter in height and in seismic zones 3, 4, and 5. Therefore, if you are in seismic zones 3, 4, and 5, minimum grade is M25. This is notwithstanding other provisions with respect to fire, with respect to cover, with respect to environment. The minimum grade that is to be used for seismic resistance can be said to be M25 in seismic zones 3, 4, and 5. Next slide. Now the definition, first we will take up the beams. The factored axial compressive stress, if we do an analysis, many of the beams may also be attracting axial compressive stress. Therefore, many of the horizontal members may attract axial compressive stress. If there is an axial compressive stress, then should it be designed as a column or should it be designed as a beam? This is dictated by the clause 6.1, which says that if the axial stress does not exceed 0.08 FCK, then you can design it as a beam. If it exceeds 0.08 FCK, then you will have to design, and provisions of the column given in this code apply to that member also, even though it is a horizontal member. It is not designated as a beam, it is designed as a compression member. Mostly, if you are taking temperature stresses and if you are having a shear wall in your building, some of the horizontal members will have to be designed as a column because the shear wall will not move, whereas the beam column at the other end will move. Therefore, there will be axial forces in the beam which will be exhibited by your computer analysis, and therefore you will have to design it as a beam, check it as a column, and okay it for the column regulations. Next slide, please. Now, one very ticklish issue that we have to answer is, should always the width of the beam be less than the width of the column? It is preferable to have the width of the beam less than the width of the column, but it may not always be possible. Now, if the width of the beam is larger, how much larger it can be, how much you can accommodate, and in what way you can accommodate. This is answered by class 6.1.4. I have given this is taken from the code. Here give column size is C1 by C2. C2 is the supporting width. This is C2. Your beam width is much larger than C2. How much larger it can be? The code says that it can be C2 plus 0.75 times the breadth of the supporting member, which is C1. The breadth of the supporting member is C1. So 0.75 times C1 on this side and 0.75 times C1 on this side can be extended, and the supporting length of the column is C2. So C2 plus 0.75 C1 plus 0.75 C1 will be the total width of the beam. The width of the column is much less here. How do you manage? Now, this is called wide beams, and in wide beams, to make it behave as a wide beam integrally, you will have to have confining steel on both sides, plus integrating steel going right down. If you do this, you will have a wide beam and a narrow column. Even though you may have a wide beam and narrow column, you will have to satisfy other provisions such as strong column, weak beam. Therefore, you will have to make the beam. This usually applies in instances where you have a shallow beam. If you have a shallow beam, its moment capacity will be less, and therefore it may not be difficult for you to provide a strong column, weak wide beam system. Next slide, please. Yeah, some of the provisions with respect to minimum reinforcement that is not changed is IS 13920 1993, 13920 2016, 0.24 root FCK by Fy, where FCK and Fy are in MPa. This gives you the row minimum required. But there has been some change between 1993 and 2016. 1993 does not insist on 12 mm diameter bars to be provided at both top and bottom faces, minimum 2 number at the two ends, whereas the new code 2016 insists that beams shall have at least 12 mm diameter bars each at top and bottom faces. At least 2 plus 2, 4 bars of 12 mm diameter is mandatory. This is the change. This provision has been kept without any change. Next slide, please. Now, the provisions with respect to lapping. 2016 code explicitly states not more than 50% of the bar can be spliced. And when you splice 50% of the bar, one thing the code has not said is which bars can you splice. In one of the issues which I took, 50% of the bar can be spliced, but they have spliced all the bars on one side. The other side, it is continuing. It is not advisable to do like that. It is always advisable, if you say 50%, it is always better to stop the bars alternately so that the lapping, reduction strength due to lapping is spread and not concentrated on one side of the beam. This is one thing. And when you lap, you have development length on this side and development length on that side. On both development length LD, you will have to provide stirrups at closer spacing, preferably at 150 mm. When you are lapping a beam, it should be at 150 mm, but there is a minimum provision given in the column. When it is a column, this is reduced to 100. We will see how it is reduced to 100 when we look at the provisions for the column. See, transverse reinforcement. In calculation of design shear force capacity of RC beams, contribution of the following shall not be considered. Now, what are the following things that cannot be considered as per clause 6.3.4? Number one, you cannot consider an inclined bar to carry shear under earthquake situation, because earthquake reverses the inclined bar or the bent up bar cannot be taken into account. Its capacity is zero. Second thing, which is quite real, and concrete in RC section, usually we take the concrete capacity plus the steel stirrup capacity. But if you are in the plasticine zone, concrete capacity should not be considered, and the shear capacity of the plasticine zone should be considered. We should take it only as that which is provided by vertical stirrups. Stirrups, inclined stirrups, should not be provided in the plasticine zone. That is to be accounted for. This is very important. Some of the people may wonder why such a stringent provision is there on the plastic hinges, that is at the two ends of the beam. The reason is you are going to yield the main reinforcement in tension and in compression when there is an earthquake force. And when the main reinforcement is yielded, there will be wide gap. The crack across the critical section will not be only at the top only or only at the bottom only. It will be running through right along the height of the beam. And therefore, there is a full depth crack in the plasticine zone. This full depth crack will permit slipping of one side with respect to the other, and hence concrete capacity to shear becomes almost zero once you go into 2 or 3 cycles of loading during an earthquake. That is the reason why the concrete capacity is taken as zero for shear in the plasticine zone. Next slide. Now you may be, depending upon the requirement, you may use any type of shape of concrete column. It can be a T shape, it can be a X shape, it can be a channel shape. But design and detailing shall be carried out for the particular type, considering the corners which may create some problem. The minimum dimension of the column shall not be less than 300 mm and shall not be less than 20 times the diameter of the bar. There is a printer's devil in the figure given in the code which says 15 dia. It is not correct. It is actually 20 dB is the correct value. Next slide. Yeah, here you can see it is given as 15 dB. 15 dB, it is not 15 dB, it is 20 dB. I have just made a sample calculation as per the old code and as per the new code, and shown you that the column width as per the new code is definitely larger than the column width as per the old code. This is as per class 7.1.2. Next slide. This is a very important issue which we may discuss a little bit threadbare. This provision was not there in the previous code, 1993 code. We all know that we would like to have strong column, weak beam system, so that if at all failure occurs, it is confined to the beam and not to the entire structure. If the column fails, the entire structure falls. And therefore, we try to protect the column without any failure. The way we do it is we enhance the capacity of the column compared to the capacity of the beam by a factor 1.4 times. That is, if I have a beam column junction, I have shown here two types of forces acting on the beam column junction. One is when the earthquake is from left to right, and the other one is when the earthquake is from right to left. Now, we have beam capacity, we have the column capacity. The sum of the column capacity, that is this one plus this one, should be greater than or equal to 1.4 times the sum of the beam capacity. This is a very important provision, and this provision safeguards your column. But when you are applying this provision, one has to be very, very careful with respect to the directions of the moments and the amount of reinforcement you will consider for the capacity. For instance, if I say this is a beam, in 99% of the cases, it will not be a rectangular beam. It will be a T-beam. It will have, near the column, it will have reinforcement in the slab. The reinforcement in the slab will also be contributing to the beam strength. And therefore, you will have to consider an upper limit of the strength of the beam and a lower limit for the strength of the column. And the lower limit for the strength of the column should be 1.4 times more than the upper limit for the beam. Otherwise, all your calculations will not yield you to a strong column, weak beam system. This is when for an interior column, this is for an exterior column. In some cases, you might also have to consider, especially if your column is at the foundation level, you may have a wall. This wall can be a retaining wall. This retaining wall, if it is integrated with the column, the reinforcement in the retaining wall can also be considered for your strength assessment of the sum of the column strength. This is a new provision, very good provision, but very difficult to comply with in many cases. One has to scratch one's head to see how this provision is satisfied in reality. Next slide. Lap splices shall be provided only in the central half of the member length. It should be proportioned as a tension splice. Coops shall be provided over the entire splice length at a spacing not exceeding 150 mm center to center, and if it is a column, 100. Not more than 50% of the bar shall be spliced at one section. This we saw. Next slide. Mm development length, where when you say you can provide splice and you can put additional stirrups to take care of tying, can you provide a lap splice anywhere and everywhere? No. There are places where you cannot provide a splice. Number one, within a joint or within a distance 2D from the face of the column. 2D from the face of the column is the plastic hinge zone. In the plastic hinge zone, you cannot provide a lap. That is why, and you cannot provide, you have to provide in the central half. You cannot provide at the bottom of a column or at the top of the column. Not more than 50% of the area of steel bar shall be spliced in any one section. Lap splices shall not be used for bars of diameter more than 32 mm, for which mechanical splicing shall be adopted. This is a very, very important provision. Of course, I am I will not recommend splicing of 32 mm diameter bar, because even when you do very nice detailing, the force that a 32 mm diameter bar carries is so much that you cannot make it yield and fail. The bar will pull out. And that is the reason why laps are not permitted in 32 mm diameter bar. Now, what is the alternative? The alternative is mechanical splicing. Again, welding is not an alternative in seismic prone zone, because welding has got its own problems. So you will have to go for good tested mechanical splicing, which are now available. And one other thing which you should ensure, these mechanical splices can be used in the plastic zone, can also be used in a regular zone. It is preferable to use the thing in a regular zone. But if you are using it in a plastic zone, when you are testing, the failure should not occur in the splicing, it should occur in the original bar. Only such bars can be permitted in plastic zone, because you need ductility in the plastic zone, not only the strength. Next slide. Now let us look at transverse reinforcement. There is a small mistake here. The link shall have 135-degree hook at the ends with an extension of not 6 times its diameter. It should be 8 times its diameter, but not less than 75 mm. This has come as an addendum to the code. The code says 6 times its diameter, but not less than 65 mm. Now, errata has been issued. This is 8 times diameter, and this is 75 mm. This was previously much less. Now, it has been rationalized. Both, I will show you. Next slide. This is the previous definition of, and next one. Next slide. This is, when you go to the previous slide. Yeah, here. This is the correct thing. That is 8 and 75. You are permitted to use, when you are using these links, when rectangular links are used, the minimum diameter permitted for transverse reinforcement is 8 mm. This clause was not there in the previous code. The previous code, you could use 6 mm, but now the minimum diameter for the lateral is 8 mm. When diameter of the longitudinal bar is less than 32 mm, and when it is 32 mm diameter bar, the minimum diameter to be used is 10 mm. This is one thing. The second thing is, in places where you need two individual bars, one side is bent through 135 degrees, the other side is bent through 90 degrees to allow ease in fabrication. Now, when you are having this as 90 degrees, when there are two links here, you will have to provide 190 degrees here and 190 degrees here. Not 190 degrees, 90 degrees should not come on the same face. This type of detailing is very important because it has a bearing on confining steel given in the confinement zones. So in the confinement zones, to get effective confinement, the distance here, you should have, you can see this 300 everywhere, 300 everywhere. Most of the test results are available for confining steel for a parallel reinforcement placed at 300 mm. And therefore, the confining steel equation that has been derived and given to you in the code is for rectangular confinement zones. You cannot apply this to other type of confinement. For instance, if you have a column with reinforcement provided in the form of a diamond, you cannot use the confinement steel equation there because that doesn't apply. Now, you will have to provide only rectangular confinement zone, and for the rectangular confinement zone, we have the equation, we have the research backing. If you are using any other type like diamond or sometimes unequal, etc., you will have to go for specialist literature and special equations. This equation cannot be used. Next slide. Flexural yielding is likely to occur in beams during strong earthquake shaking and in columns when the shaking intensity exceeds the expected intensity of earthquake shaking. You can go to next slide. Now, here, these are in a frame. If you look at, these are the various detailing requirements that are given. And these detailing requirements ensure that you have adequate ductile performance. The most important requirements I will indicate: the requirement of plastic in zone here, 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 the requirement for laps here. You can see one bar is taken through and bars are lapped here. 50% of the bars are lapped and it is within the middle third. One other thing which is not depicted in this figure is with respect to joint. For instance, one beam depth may be 1 meter. The next beam depth may be 0.5 meter. Both may be framing into a column. And when both are framing into a column, till how much you will continue your confining steel, and from where you will start your joint steel are questions, and whether you will have to take the full confining steel into the joint. These are very clearly addressed in this code. It gives you how much steel has to be taken if 4 beams cross, or if only 3 beams cross and 1 is left open. If 1 is left open, if only 3 beams cross, what should be the confining steel to be provided, and from where does the confining steel end and where the joint steel begins. All this is given very clearly in the new code. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Can you go to the previous slide? One slide we have. Yeah, correct. Right. The columns special reinforcement shall have a spacing not more than 1/4 the minimum member dimension of the beam on column, 6 times the diameter of the smallest longitudinal reinforcing bar, 100 mm. Mostly you will be landing in 100 mm. Now, there are three things that we will have to look at if we want to make a column behave in a ductile manner. Number one, the confining zone L0 length. So the length of the confining zone L0, which is the plastic inch length, is defined and given clearly in the code. The second thing that we will have to do is the spacing of the stirrup in this plastic inch zone. That is clearly given here. Three different spacing, and you will have to choose the minimum of the three. Mostly you will be landing in 100. So we have located where we are going to provide confining steel. We have said what should be the spacing of the confining steel. The next question that we have to address is what is the diameter? The diameter is given by this formula. ASH is the herein where use of rectangular hoops or spiral hoops become important. The code gives you two equations, one for circular column and one for rectangular column. For circular column, it is the hoop. For rectangular column, it is 300 mm spacing. That is what I have indicated in that diagram. Now, for circular column, two equations are given, which depends upon this. SV is already determined because you have already said what is the spacing. So all that you will have to do is plug in the various values, get at the value of ASH. AHH is the area of steel to be provided. You already got a spacing, therefore you can get at the diameter of the bar that you have to use for confining steel. This confining steel is intended to give adequate ductility. It is not intended to give any shear capacity. In addition to this, you will have to independently check the shear capacity requirement and see that what you are providing is more than the shear demand at that particular point. This is with respect to circular hoop. I have given here clearly. You can see SV is the spacing, DK is the core concrete. Core concrete is concrete measured to the outside of the hoop. So that is DK. And this gives you ASH. Next slide, please. Yeah, the previous one is for circular column, and the present one, this one is for rectangular column, where H is the longer dimension of the rectangular link measured to its outside face, which does not exceed 300 mm. So this H should never exceed 300 mm. So for every 300 mm in a column, if your column may be 1 meter, every 300 mm you have to divide and have a rectangular system for confinement purposes. Next slide, please. Special confining reinforcement shall be provided over the full height of the column, which has significant variation in stiffness along its height. Yeah, you may have a staircase landing slab coming. Variation in stiffness may result due to abrupt changes in cross-section size, unintended restraint to the column provided by the staircase slab, mezzanine floor, plinth or lintel beams framing into the column, RC walls or masonry walls adjoining a column, and extending only for a partial height of the column. In all these cases, this confining steel has to be provided for the full height of the column. Next slide, please. Now, this next new thing in this code is previously 1993 code was not checking the shear stress in the joint. The new code 2016 wants you to check the shear stress in the joint. The shear stress in the joint, there are the joints confined by beams there are three types of joints. Joint which is most efficient is one which is confined by beams on all four sides. The formula for shear stress is 1.5 AEJ FCK. AEJ is the area, FCK 1.5 is the factor. So this is shear stress, or you can also call it as shear strength of the joint. So it depends upon confinement given by four sides, it is 1.5. For joints confined by beams on three faces, it is 1.2. And for all other joints, it is 1. So if there are only two faces, corner column will have only two faces, then you will have the value 1. So this can be calculated. That is the strength of the joint. The actual load applied on the joint should be estimated, and the actual load applied on the joint should produce a stress less than the strength of the joint. That is the requirement of the new code. Next slide, please. So in general, it is the load applied is divided into X earthquake, Y earthquake. For X earthquake, it is the shear in the X direction divided by breadth of the joint into width of the joint. Similarly, here it is breadth of the joint into width of the joint. So you have a shear stress value in the X direction, you have a shear stress value in the Y direction, you have a shear strength value in the X direction, you have a shear strength value in the Y direction. In all cases, your shear strength should overshoot your shear stress. Now, when you are calculating the shear stress, the yield stress should be considered as 1.2 times Fy and not as Fy. This is very, very important because this takes into account strain hardening effects, which is inevitable. So your capacity, flexural capacity given by the beam is 1.2 times Fy. Using this 1.2 times Fy, find out the moments, and from the moment, calculate the shear. This is how the value is calculated, and ensure that your shear stress in the joint is less than shear strength provided. Here, how do you define the width of the joint and breadth of the joint? That is a very important issue. Unfortunately, there are some mistakes in the code. I have corrected those mistakes. I will give you the corrected value. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now you can go to the next. Please go to the next slide. We'll come back to this later. Now there are two types of joints, beam column joint that you may get. Breadth of the column is more, breadth of the beam is less. That is type 1. Breadth of the beam is more, breadth of the column is less. That is type 2. So for type 1 and type 2, you should have two different methods of calculating the joint width and joint length. You can now go to the previous slide. Yeah. Now you have to take minimum of breadth of the column, breadth of the beam plus 0.5 HC. HC is the depth. So if BC is greater than BB, minimum of BC plus 0.5 HC if BC is less than BB. There are two equations. These two are not finding a place in your code, but these are correct values. The code has some errors that can be corrected. So now you know the width of the joint, you know the depth of the joint, you can calculate the area of the joint. Therefore you can calculate the strength at one end and stress at the other end, compare and see that your shear stress is safe. Next slide. Next slide. We have seen this. Now, confining reinforcement in joints. When all four, this is where confining reinforcement, how much you have to provide. Previously, there was no guideline, but now there is very clear guideline. Confining reinforcement in the joint. When all four vertical faces of the joint are having beams framing into them, covering at least 75% of the width of each face. At least half of the special confining reinforcement as per class 8 should be, that is, if all four sides are there, then 50% of the confining reinforcement can be provided in the joint region. Now, when all four vertical joints are not having beams framing into them, 75% of the confining steel has to be provided. And up to the bottom of the beam, your regular confining steel will come. Above the bottom of the beam, your reduced confining steel, either 50% if all the four sides are there, or if three sides are there, 75% will be provided. So you exactly know how to distribute your confining steel into the joint region. Special confining reinforcement required as per 8 at the two ends of the column shall be provided through the joint with the depth of the shallowest framing into it, and spacing of these transverse links shall not exceed 150 mm. Next slide, please. I think. Next. We saw, yes, previous slide. Please go to the previous slide. We saw the provisions for the frames, which involved beams, columns, and joints. The next is shear walls. I will not take shear walls today. It will require full 1 hour lecture. So I will stop here and we can have discussion on various points that I have presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was a very interesting presentation. Anybody having doubt?
Of course, I have given the presentation material for shear walls also completely. It is there, yes, but I am not going to present it because it will take too much of time.
No issue. Not
some other day I will take that.
No, Professor. Yes, Professor. Okay, no problem. Anybody having doubts in the Professor's presentation can raise. Yeah. Anybody having any doubts or any question?
Sir, yes, I would like to have one question.
Yeah.
Kindly mention your name and.
Manigandan, sir. This is Manigandan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Research scholar Anna University. Sir,
yeah.
Good evening, sir. Your presentation was very nice today, and I have one clarification, sir. Gently.
Yeah.
As per class 7.1.1.
Yeah.
Minimum size of column is 20 dB or 300 mm. Sir, it is applicable to both width and depth, or only to width, sir?
No, it is applicable for both width and depth, because the 20 dB is the beam development length required. It is because of that it comes. Generally, on the other side, the beams will be thin and you will not have problem. Only on the width side you will have problem, more problem.
Okay.
But it is applicable to both sides. Minimum
even 300 mm is also
300 or 20 dB, considering both sides.
Both sides.
Respectively.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, and one more clarification, sir.
Yeah.
So, to avoid this 300 mm column size, now people are preferring wall. column, but if the aspect ratio is more than 4.5, it is taken as wall.
Yeah.
We can consider it as a framed structure, or how we have to look into, sir.
Now,
If it is a beam and column, we can take it as framed structure, but this, how can we classify, sir?
really speaking, there are three different systems. Number one is a framed system, in which the aspect ratio is 0.4 for the column. Number two is the shear wall system, in which you have walls and aspect ratio for the walls are given. The third system is a system in which you have mixed both wall as well as a frame. The recommendations given for detailing is not intended for mixed system. The recommendations given are only for frames and shear walls. There is no recommendation given on how a frame shear wall integrated behavior is accounted for. But specialist literature are there. In fact, applying a shear wall frame interaction is beneficial for earthquake resistance, and you will get a better performance. But the detailing aspect has to be taken care of. It is not given in IS 13920.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, any other participants having any questions or doubts? Oh, sir, I have a small doubt in process.
Yeah.
Again, this IS 13920/2016, again, it is an optional in seismic zone 2, or it is mandatory for zone 2, sir?
It is mandatory in zone 2 with the concessions given in the 13920. See, there are two issues one has to understand. Well, there are some buildings which has already been built based on 1993 code. Right?
Yes, sir.
Those buildings will not be as per the new code. Because those buildings are not as per the new code, but we cannot demolish those buildings now. They are existing. So, even when you are not having fully compliant with respect to 2016, there are some provisions given in 2016 which address what has already been built as per 1993. But when you are building a new code, when you are building a new building, you need not have to go for 1993. You will have to only look at 2016, and what is permitted in 2016 only is governing.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And when it comes to class 6.3.3 in process, I mean, shear force capacity for the beams,
yeah,
there is a formula given in right process. In that, whether shear plus torsion, I mean, equivalent shear shall be considered for capacity, or only shear, I mean, gravity load shear.
Which is the equation we are referring to?
Class 6.3.3 in process. Shall I go to presentation?
Yes. Yeah. Can you go to that?
Yes.
This one, is it? In calculation of?
Yes, sir. I think 6.3.3 is not here, I think.
Yes, I will take it. Just a minute.
Yes, sir.
6.3.
Sway to right and sway to left is there now.
Yeah. What is addressed here is only direct shear and not torsional shear.
Yes, professor. Okay.
What is addressed here is only direct shear and not torsional shear. Torsional shear is to be considered differently because it introduces rigid body motion, and it is not included. In fact, the torsion itself has not been included. Torsion design has not been included in the detailing. Now,
Yes, Professor. Correct.
you will have to first design the torsional reinforcement as per
Yes, Professor.
IS 456,
Yes,
taking
Professor.
equivalent shear, and
Yes,
then
Professor.
provide reinforcement taking equivalent shear in both directions.
Yes, Professor. Both left and right. And
Both
for the moment also, we should not consider the equivalent moment.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Professor.
But that issue is not considered. What has been given in the code is a very simple issue of load
Yes,
occurring
Professor.
in one plane.
Yes, Professor.
What you are addressing is a load occurring in two different perpendicular directions.
Yes,
Then
Professor.
only you will get torsion into account.
Okay. Yes, Professor. Correct.
But that is very, very important, because ultimately, when your column fails, my own observation when I looked at failure in the laboratory is the failure will always be in torsion,
Yes,
because
Professor.
when a column fails, two bars will yield. When two bars
Yes,
yields,
Professor.
unsymmetry comes in, and so when it
Yes.
collapses, it twists and collapses.
Yes, Professor. Correct. Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. Any participants? Any other doubts? Or
Sir,
any
yes,
other
sir, I have
questions?
one more doubt. Yes,
Yeah,
sir, I have one more doubt in 1893, sir.
yeah,
Sir, the latest code says that we need to consider the stiffness of infill wall by modeling a equivalent diagonal strut.
correct.
Sir, but how to model this one, sir? In one direction or in both direction we have to do, but the code is not clear in that.
Code gives you an equation for the diagonal strut,
Yes.
and that diagonal strut is in the direction of the wall.
Okay, sir.
If your wall is both in the x and y direction, you will have a separate diagonal strut for the x wall and separate diagonal strut for the y wall.
Okay, sir. And for one particular wall, we are going to model only one diagonal strut, not in both directions.
Not in both directions. Only the stiffness is accounted for only in the strong plane. In the weak
Strong
plane,
plane.
it is assumed to be 0.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
See, any
Okay,
wall,
sir. Thank
even
you.
shear wall, we don't consider in the weak plane.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
But Professor, again, in the same question, actually, I have doubt.
Yeah.
But when we are not considering for the strength, do we need to consider the stiffness of the masonry? Will it helpful in the ductility of the frames?
No, see, extensive testing has been done at Anna University on infill
Yes, Professor.
frame. Now,
Yes,
infill increases the load carrying capacity, but reduces the ductility. But it increases the load carrying capacity quite enormously. Bare frame versus infill frame, the load carrying capacity is doubled. But
yes,
whereas the
Professor.
ductility, bare frame, if the ductility is 6 or 7, infill frame will have a ductility of only 2. So both these issues have to be addressed.
Yes, Professor.
There are, see, some people don't prefer to make infill frames act along with the frame. So they have a separation joint. They have
Yes,
these separation joints are specially sold in some of the Western countries where it is structurally isolated. The column is
yes,
structurally isolated from the infill.
yes, Professor.
But we are not doing any such thing. We build the
Yes,
column along with the wall, and therefore we integrate and we have to take into account the stiffness of the wall.
yes, Professor. Okay. Any participants? Any questions? Or shall we finish? Any questions? Professor, yes, Professor. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Professor. Thank you very much, Professor.
I thank you all for listening to me, and thank you very much. And I thank Mr. Sabarinathan for arranging the platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, sir, Engineer Kalyan Sundaram sir is on line.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Kalyan Sundaram sir, please unmute yourself and discuss.
King. I'm
I
not
think
able to see you.
others can leave.
எப்படி இருக்கீங்க? நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா?
I think he is not able to connect you, Professor.
Okay, okay.
No problem, Professor. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalyana Sundaram.
Yes, Professor. Dr. LSJ also is online.
Hello. Hello.